Welcome back to Tied Up with the Morgans. If you live in a region where maple trees grow and you're watching this video, I guess anytime, you can start to get ready for the following February or March, really towards the end of winter. And here in Pennsylvania, we just had a month of very cold temps. Actually, the coldest was negative 15 degrees. And we had a lot of snow. And as you can see, there's really no snow left. We are on the end of that. It has started to warm up. And when that happens, everything thaws out. Everything turns to a muddy mess. And it's kind of a great time to be indoors. But it's also a great time to be outside, because that means things are starting to thaw, which means the sap in the maple trees that goes down is now working its way up the tree. Really, the ideal temperatures you want to look for after a freeze, in February, March, depending where you're at, right? It can vary. If you're further north, it's going to be later because your winter's probably still going in. Whereas here, we might be on the end of it. It's tough to say, but I do know temperatures are warming up and they're freezing at night, which that is ideal for tapping maple trees, for collecting maple sap, okay? So at night, it freezes. In the day, it's above freezing. When you see those temperatures, it's going to be flowing. That sap, as the trees warm up, is going to be moving upward the tree, right? It's going to move up the tree. And that's when you'll be catching the sap in the tubing, depending however you set that up. Today, I'm going to show you how I set that up. You really don't need a lot of things, and it's pretty cheap for the most part, until we get to the boiling part, which we'll get to that. But overall, it's not very expensive. It just takes tons of time. And that's why pure maple syrup is expensive. If you go to buy it, it's not cheap. And it's so much better than normal, maple syrup that's not actually real maple syrup. So if you haven't had it, try it, and you'll want to be tapping maple trees. So keep that in mind. A lot of work. It's not difficult. It's nothing special, but it's a lot of work. And I first started this 5 years ago in 2020, March 2020, right in the middle of COVID, or at the start of COVID, while working a lot of hours. And I don't know, it was a very impulsive thing. Kind of everything I do is impulsive. I thought I wanted to tap maple trees and make my own maple syrup. And I did it, and it was a ton of work, a lot of late nights, learned a lot, some mistakes. We'll go into that later, but I made maple syrup and I was hooked, and I'm going to show you how you can do it today. So first, we're going to see what you need to get started tapping the trees. You can't make it until you tap the trees to collect the sap. So let's see what we need. First thing, I use a rubber mallet. Then a drill. I am using a 5/16 drill bit. Depending on the taps you have, you may need this size or you may need a 7/16. So this is 5/16, which is for the taps that I have. So let's look at those now. These are the taps here. I just threw them in the bed of the side-by-side to show you, but this is it. This goes in the tree. The sap flows down these tubes into these buckets. I'm just using Tractor Supply buckets because they're cheap and they're food grade. And the lids, I put that same size hole to feed the tube through that, so it then collects into the bucket, okay? All right, so those are all the things you need. A mallet, your drill bit, the right size to fit the tubing you get. I get my tubing off of Amazon. You can do that too. I'll put a link to the ones that I use. And food grade buckets, lids, and that's everything. So it's not a lot of stuff, and it's pretty cheap. And really, everything I'm going to show you today is the entry level of making maple syrup. Nothing crazy. Same with my evaporator setup. Everything this year is going to be kind of a budget friendly, but also more for the entry level, the first timer, right? It's simple, it works, and it makes enough maple syrup for me and my family for the year. So we're going to keep doing it. I'm only doing 10 trees. In the past, I've done a lot more than that, but I don't have the time this year. And rather than just not doing it all, which is what happened last year. Last year, I was like, we have plenty of syrup. I need to take a break. This year, we don't have plenty of syrup, so I'm gonna make it for this year. Enough for us and to share with some friends and family. So that's all. We're doing 10 trees this year. That will make plenty, and it'll be enough that I can manage, me and the kids, right? Getting out here collecting the sap. There are more amazing systems on YouTube you can look at of people who have, they'll have tubing running all through the woods, right? You'll have hundreds and hundreds of yards, miles, some cases, of tubing leading to one collection point. Sometimes it's gravity fed, other times it's like a vacuum system. It's really cool stuff. But I'm just at the base level, okay? So if you want to see that stuff, this isn't the video for that. I'm showing you how anyone can do this. Even maple trees, order this stuff on Amazon, get out in the woods and get tapping, okay? So now we're out here. We got a few maple trees around us. We're going to start to tap them. Also, I'm doing 10 trees, so I have 10 buckets with me. You're gonna need more than 10 buckets if you're doing 10 trees, unless you're boiling all the time and you're boiling that sap as you get it. I'm not gonna be doing that, so therefore I'm gonna need to store this. So I have a lot of buckets, and I'll actually need to get more because a lot of those buckets ended up going towards my nursery for other projects. And so keep that in mind. Don't just think 10 trees, 10 buckets. They'll fill up pretty fast. Tomorrow it's supposed to be in the 50s. So it's actually, this morning was 20. Tomorrow's gonna be 58 degrees. So it's a pretty big increase. That sap is really gonna be flowing. That's why I wanna get this done today. But I could fill all 10 of these buckets in a day tomorrow from just 10 trees. And if you don't have anywhere to put it, that sap's gonna keep coming. So you need a lot of buckets. So keep that in mind. You can never really have too many 5-gallon buckets. Some things to keep in mind too is the position of the bucket. I always put it on the north side of the tree, not the south side, because this is going to be baking in the sun and sap can go bad. So if I couldn't get out here tomorrow and it's warm, that sap might go bad if that sun's cooking that bucket all day long. So I have them sitting here on the north side of the trees. The other thing, let's take a look at this. One other thing is to be mindful of the trees, right? So I know this is a maple, which if you don't know how to identify them, read into that before you tap the wrong trees, right? You can tap other trees, some, but not all of them. Anyways, make sure you're tapping a maple if you want to make maple syrup. But this tree, I can see here, it's got a lot of wounds on it. That part's rotting. It's got this wire that's in here from decades. I don't want to tap that tree. I'm not doing it any favors by tapping it. It's going to have sap leaking out of it at many spots. So that's not the ideal tree, okay? So we'll find another tree like right here. This tree is pretty good. There's no sap leaking out of it anywhere. So we're going to tap this one. I'll show you how we do that. And you're going to put your hole at about 3 feet off the ground. You don't want to do too high, too low. 3 feet seems to be the rule that I stick by, and many others that have been doing this a lot longer than me. So I go about 3 feet off the ground, and I will go in 1.5 to 2 inches. That's what I do for these taps. Some people go further, but that's what I do, okay? So, and I'm gonna go in upward at a slight upward angle, and that's kind of because of the design here of the taps. But you don't want to go downward, it's not gonna work, right? You want to go in and just up a bit, okay? So I don't know how well you can see from there, but whoop. About 1.5 to 2 inches, I think is what that was. But anyways, now we'll get this tap in here, get a good spot for the bucket, your mallet, find the hole, there we go, and it's as easy as that. And I like these, I said I like these tubes better. I have different ones. These are longer. I just like it because it gives me more room to put the bucket. A lot of times at the base of these trees, you have roots, sticks, a lot of things. You can't find a good flat spot for the bucket. And I like these longer ones because it gives me more flexibility in moving the bucket around to find the spot. These are 4 feet long. I also have 3 feet ones, but for me, the 4 feet work best. Another thing to keep in mind is where your trees are. If you have a lot of trees near you, pick the ones closest to you. And the reason I say that is the first year I did this, I didn't know trees like I do now. And I just started walking in the woods looking for maple trees. Well, that looks like a maple, you know. I start walking, that looks like one. Didn't look at any tree too closely. Before you know it, I had buckets that were almost, the furthest was about a half mile from here. Up a hill, and this is the muddiest time of year. And so every day after work in the dark, I'd be outside slipping and falling, carrying 2 5-gallon buckets at a time full of sap all over. And I did 20 trees my first year, and it was a mess. It was a lot of work. And so pick trees that are close to you, unless you have access to like a side-by-side, a tractor, something like that. Fortunately for myself, I do have a side-by-side now. However, I'm still going to keep close to where I'm going to be boiling, and that's because I just don't want to go far away and turf up the yard every day driving the side-by-side through there. So we're going to just be keeping it close to where the evaporator will be. The other thing, temperatures, like I said, you don't want your sap to go bad. Things I've done in the past that worked great is I made a huge pile of snow before it melted right behind my house where the sun does not hit, and that lasted weeks. I could then just, actually no, it wasn't behind my house, I did it behind my shed. And there's a bunch of Norway spruce trees there, as you can tell, and it doesn't get much sun. That snow lasted forever, and it kept my sap nice and cool and kept it good, didn't go bad until I was ready to boil. So keep that in mind. If it looks like maybe it's going to warm up a lot and you're worried about that and you have snow, make a pile of it. Or if you have like a big cooler or something like that. That worked great for me. Here's one I have in the shelter that I slept in when I camped outside with no tent, no sleeping bag when it got down to like 10, 15 degrees. It's a maple, so we tapped it. Got 2 more over there, and we'll just do a few more here and we'll be done. This old girl is the first maple tree that I ever tapped, okay? And you can see it's how dark parts of the tree are, right? It's already got sap coming out of a lot of different wounds of it. Also the rain's probably part of it, but it's definitely sap from the last couple days because it is ice, okay? So it had been coming out, there's holes all over, and it has frozen over. But yeah, this was the first tree I ever did. Learned a lot since, but love this tree. Beautiful fall colors, like any red maple. And that's another topic. So if you're in the maple syrup field, if you do this as a hobby, whatever, and you have sugar maples, a lot of the guys with sugar maples are very particular and love to point out, those aren't sugar maples. Yeah, these aren't. These are red maples. I don't get the hype because at the end of the day, so I should back up a little bit. Sugar maples have a higher sugar content than a red maple or a silver maple, okay? So its sugar content is higher, but at the end of the day, you still need to boil a lot of sap to make syrup. Usually a ratio of like 40 gallons of sap equals a gallon of syrup, okay? So it's a lot of work, and it's not like sugar maple cuts that in half. It doesn't. Maybe someone in the comments can tell me some other points that I'm not aware of, but as far as I know, you got to do a lot of boiling either way. So maybe on the high level, right, when you're doing thousands of trees, maybe that really adds up. I'm sure it does. So that's probably where it matters. But for a hobbyist like myself, I'm going to be boiling a lot. I'm going to be working on this a lot. It doesn't matter. And I've actually bought maple syrup from another maple, a big maple farm, and taste tested it. So but if someone wants to tell me that, oh, it tastes better, can't use that either, because Kate blindly tasted each of them and liked ours better than that other one that came from all sugar maples. So I don't even know if that has anything to do with the taste. Just throwing that out there now. If someone wants to tell me you haven't had sugar maple syrup, there we go. Apologize if I'm coming off a little aggressive, but you guys know the internet. I just gotta cover my bases before someone wants to come at me dissing red maples, one of my favorite trees. But I do say that about almost every tree that is native to my area. One of my favorite trees. But I'm just throwing that out there now. Anyways, we got a few more trees to tap. All right, 3 feet off the ground, 1.5 to 2 inches in the tree. Okay, got the hole. Tap in and adjust the bucket, and we're done. Moving on, just got to get the right, there you go. Some other things I like to do if we still had snow in this part of the property, maybe I already said this, but there is no snow up here anymore. And that's because this is a south facing slope. That snow goes quick. Whereas over there is a lot of snow on that hill. But if you had snow, things I did in the past is I would pile snow up around this. That way it can kind of keep it from tipping over. And also it just keeps it nice and cool. Like I said, for days like tomorrow, where it's going to be 58 degrees, that's pretty significant. This could go bad. Say if I can't get out here tomorrow evening to collect that, and it's warm the next day, I don't want my sap to go bad, because you feel like it's a waste. It is a waste, and you know, you're trying to make maple syrup, so that's not going to do you any good, and the tree gave you that sap for nothing. Well, there are a lot of logs around this one. Jeez, this eastern cottonwood's in the way. Got a lot going on here. I really like these 4-foot taps for this reason. Okay. All right, I got the buckets all set up. Went really fast. Does not take long at all to do this, as long as you have everything. One thing I didn't specify, but if it wasn't clear, is make sure you clean the hole out, right? With the drill, when you're pulling that out, get all those shavings out of the hole. That way it'll just flow better. But I think that's it. Really easy. And it just started to rain, so perfect timing. It was supposed to rain all day, and it didn't. I was able to get out here, get it done, and that's how you tap maple trees. If you have any questions, leave them below. In the past, a few years ago, I did videos on the same thing. You could look back at those. They might be more in depth. Today was kind of just a quick run through. I say quick, maybe I rambled too much, but really it's not hard. So that's how you do it, right? Just get the right stuff. In the comments, I'll have a pinned comment that'll have the links to everything I use, right? I mean, the buckets, you can get them anywhere. Lowe's, Home Depot, Tractor Supply. But I do prefer food grade, which the Tractor Supply ones are. I don't know if the other big box stores sell food grade ones. They might. So keep that in mind. That's what I use. And yeah, the buckets, the taps I get on Amazon, a rubber mallet. Pretty much it, in the drill. So that's all you need. It's not hard. Now the fun begins though. So we're going to check these taps tomorrow and see if we got any sap. From there we'll be collecting it all, swapping out buckets. That's usually what I do. If I have 10 trees, I'll usually take 10 buckets out into the woods and swap them out. Sometimes some trees produce a lot more than others, so I'll just combine. You might get 3 trees to a bucket, right? Like if each had, you know, a gallon in them, just combine the buckets so you always have buckets at those trees, whatever. I mean, this is very simple stuff, right? I'm probably overcomplicating it, but we start collecting, and then I'm going to show you how I build an evaporator. I have an oil tank that I need to weld into a new evaporator because it's going to be more efficient, but the season's already here and I'm not ready for that. So I'm going to show you what I've done in the past, how to make a cinder block evaporator. Very simple. So we'll do that in the next video. I'll show you how to make the evaporator. But I think that's it. So we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Have any questions, feedback, leave it below. We'd love to hear it. And if you do this yourself, let me know. Thank you.
boys. Good job, guys. You want a hug? Go ahead, come on, come hug her. Oh, my